324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. You are watching this on the Halachgoy channel of YouTube. I'm a Halachgoy, and you can be one too. 324 biblical prophecies that prove Jesus is the Messiah. Prophecy number 11. The Lamb of God promised. This prophecy is found in Genesis chapter 22, verse 8. Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offerings, my son. And the two of them went on together. The fulfillment of this prophecy is found in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 29. The next day, John, that's John the Baptist, saw Jesus coming towards him and said, Look, the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world. So according to this list that I've been using here, what John the Baptist was referring to was the prophecy that Abraham gave his son Isaac regarding the lamb that God would provide for the burnt offering that they were getting ready to give. According to John the Baptist, this offering, what's happening here is that Jesus would be the Lamb of God who would take away the sins of the world. I would like to look a little bit more fully at the 22nd chapter of Genesis, where this story comes from, to see what exactly it is that John the Baptist is referring to. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Then God said, Take your son, your only son, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, Stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went up together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told them about, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay your hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by his horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the place, The Lord Will Provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. What was being provided in the story in Genesis? Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah and sacrifice him. There is no mention at all in the book of Genesis that sacrifices are being done for the purpose of forgiveness of sin. Now, there is some mention of that in the book of, I believe, Leviticus. It does talk about some of the sacrifices that were performed in the tabernacle and in the temple are used for forgiveness of sin. Many of the sacrifices in the temple and on the tabernacle have nothing to do with forgiveness of sin. And I'm not aware of any sacrifices that are done on an independent altar as having anything to do with forgiveness of sin. What Abraham is being told to do here is to sacrifice his son. It's a test. It's not for forgiveness. It's a test. It's to consecrate. It's to dedicate. It's to assure that Abraham had his heart in the right place. Would he be willing to do it? Would Isaac be willing to be bound and placed on top of the fire or on top of the wood? I'm not exactly sure what any of this has to do with what John the Baptist was saying. The Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. The two concepts are not related to each other. Perhaps the Hope of Israel Baptist Mission confused, and they may have mixed up some of their index cards when they put together the list. Maybe there's some other verse that they're referring to. I'm sure this is going to be a repeated theme that we're going to go over again and again as we look through this list. And yeah, but these two concepts are completely separate from each other. What happened, the test for Abraham regarding his son had nothing to do with the forgiveness of sin. It is possible that John the Baptist may have put this idea into Jesus' head. When Jesus went to the cross, maybe he was thinking of his forefather Isaac, who went to be sacrificed willingly, only to be saved at the end. Perhaps that's why Jesus didn't make as big of a fuss as he could have. It wouldn't have been that hard for him to argue his way out of it. Apparently the Romans really weren't too keen on bothering with him. They had enough other headaches to deal with. Perhaps if Jesus was expecting God to pull in Isaac and save him at the last moment, that would explain why, as Jesus' life is ebbing and leaving him, one of his last words was to cry out, God, why have you forsaken me? Why didn't you save me the way you saved Isaac? That would explain that line from Jesus if Jesus was actually thinking of himself as an Isaac, which may have been placed in his head by John the Baptist. But otherwise, no, these two concepts have nothing whatsoever to do with each other. The next prophecy we'll be looking at from Genesis chapter 22, verse 18. As Isaac's seed will bless the nations. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.